I had the interesting experience of riding in a limo with him once because
Ooh.
we were doing an issue on the 10th anniversary of Monday Night Raw. So this is going back a while, but um,
Hmm.
Shane actually got me that opportunity because we said, hey, it would be great to do an interview with Vince. No one's, WWE or has never done an interview with Vince McMahon in their magazines, which is really weird. And
Yeah.
so he said, okay, I'll make it happen. And Vince was having an advertising sales meeting in Manhattan, and he had to take a limo back to Connecticut. And so I took the train down to Manhattan. I met him at the sales office, and
Hmm.
Shane was there. Shane put me in the limo with his dad, and basically told me to take it easy on his dad. We rode the limo, and there was a lot of traffic, so I was in there with him for a few hours, and we talked about everything. I mean, I finished my interview about halfway through the trip, and the rest of the time we spent talking about our families, talking about the business. It was one of the most unique experiences of my life.
And I always like to be in such an intimate space with him. And yeah, at the beginning you had to work, so I imagine you were focused on that.
Yeah.
But once things like started getting a little bit more comfortable, I would say, how was it like to just chat, hang around with Vince? I don't know, having a beer or something.
It was surreal. It was surreal. He had a stack of protein bars in the back of the limo, like a pile of them. And he offered them to me, and I don't know, I just turned it down. But I mean, he was just eating them like I guess that was his lunch. And I remember his assistant called him up to remind him that it was the 50th birthday of a very long time cherished employee. And so while I'm sitting there, he gets on his cell phone, he calls her up, and he sings happy birthday to her on her
No
voicemail,
way.
on her voice.
Oh.
And I got to witness that. I remember he also got a call from the writing team, the TV
Yeah.
writers were going over ideas with him. So I'm sitting next to him while he's on the phone, and he's saying things like, "Well, we need stronger heels. We need to build up some really good heels, and well, who do you have in mind?" And I'm listening to those kind of talks, like the internet wrestling fans' heads would explode.
Yeah, definitely.
There, and I'm right there. I'm right there. And he started telling me about his father, who, as you may know, was the original founder of
Yeah.
WWE back in the 50s, and his relationship with his dad. He was talking about when Shane and Stephanie were kids and telling me how challenging Shane was. At one point, I think they had to put him in a boarding school or a military school or something
Uh-huh.
because he was such a challenging kid. But I felt like I was really getting to know him. It was bizarre. We stopped at the photo studio. They used to have a photo studio in Stamford called Tracks because it was right by the train tracks. And I think for people that watched the old Tough Enough show,
Yeah.
a lot of that is filmed at Tracks. And we wound up doing a photo shoot to go with the interview, where there's all these pictures of me hanging out with Vince, interviewing Vince, talking to Vince, almost like what you'd see in a Sports Illustrated, where it's like the interviewer and the interview subject together. So that was a hell of a day.
Thank you for listening. Remember to leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, and spread the word. To make sure we keep our high standard content going, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/lmwpodcast by becoming a €5 backer or above. You can find the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast all over the platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and more. We're also very social, so drop us a line to say hello on Twitter at LMW Podcast and on Facebook at facebook.com/LMW Podcast. I've been Frank Mandolini. Stay safe.